Hi guys, welcome back to Chess Dumatyu. So on this video, we will tackle about the secret weapon of Rameshbabu Praggnanandhaa against the Sicilian Defense. So his secret weapon against the Sicilian Defense is simple, the A4 move on the fourth move. So the Sicilian Defense starts with the moves of E4, C5, and here there's a lot of moves here for both sides. But for example, after knight f3, e6, and after knight c3, a6, Praggnanandhaa here is constantly winning some of his games with the move a4 on the fourth move. So here, for example, if the black here plays queen c7, Praggnanandhaa here will simply play bishop to e2, and after, for example, knight c6, kingside castling, knight f6, and after d3, bishop e7, h3, stopping in knight to g5 hop, and for example after kingside castling, bishop to e3, and d6, queen to d2. On the opening phase of the game, Praggnanandhaa here actually have a radical equality on this position, but later on the in game he actually win with this kind of the move after, for example, his opponent plays on the fourth move with queen c7 and reply to his a4 move on the fourth move. And there's another move here for Praggnanandhaa after his opponent plays knight c6. Still, Praggnanandhaa here will simply place bishop to e2 and have a kingside castling. For example, after d5, there is example it takes d5, it takes d5, and after example d4, c4, and after the white here actually immediately castle on the king side, and the white here still have a smooth game afterwards. And another, for example, after e4, c5, knight f3, e6, there is another game for Praggnanandhaa in which his opponent replies with the second move after knight f3 with d6, but still after bishop to b5 with Praggnanandhaa, and after the black here plays knight e7, again, Praggnanandhaa here plays a4, his deadly weapon against this Sicilian defense. And after, for example, his opponent plays knight f6, knight c3, still after e6, the white here castle on the king side, and after bishop to e7, d4, c takes d4, queen takes d4, kingside castling, rook d to e1, pressurizing the d6, and after simple a6, attacking the bishop of Praggnanandhaa, but Praggnanandhaa here simply retreat his bishop, and after queen c7, again after bishop to e3, the white here actually connect now his rooks, and it is very clear that the white here finished his opening by developing his piece and connecting his rook, and it is very clear also that the white here is ready to attack now in the middle game. Unlike, for example, the black here will try to cope up with his lag on development, and after, for example, b6, knight to d2, rerouting his knight, and after bishop d7, all the black here actually connect his rooks, but for example, after knight c4 of Praggnanandhaa, it puts up now some pressure on d6, and also the b6 on this position, and after, for example, the black here tries to release his weakness pawn on d6, but still there is simple it takes d5, and after knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop f4, attacking the queen on this position, and after the black here simply sidestep his queen to b7, attacking this g2, but there is just a simple knight to e3 defending and attacking the knight on d5, and after bishop to 6, bishop d6, penetrating now the position, and after bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, and after knight c5, again there's a simple a5 move for the white with a pressure on the queen side, and we shall see this position now that the white here actually has an advantage with pawn majority on the queen side and with active piece on the board. And later on, Praggnanandhaa here wins against this black with this kind of position that actually evaluated and favors to white's position. So going back, for example, after e4 and after a simple move of c5, knight f3, e6. Again, Praggnanandhaa here plays knight to c3, and after a6, we shall see on this position in which Praggnanandhaa here plays his secret weapon against the Sicilian defense with a4 move on the fourth move. And let's say, for example, if the black here plays b6, but there's just simple inside castling, b7, d4, c6, d4, knight takes d4, queen 7, and after knight takes c6, d takes c6, bishop d3, knight f6, queen to e2, knight d7, bishop to e3, and after, for example, g6, f4, bishop b4, f5, bishop d6, attacking the h2 pawn, but Praggnanandhaa here simply plays h3 and avoid any capture on the h2 pawn, and after it takes f5 and kingside casting for black, but there is simple knight to e4, and again on this position it favors to white because of this active piece that actually ready to attack against the queen side, and again with this knight that actually controls some vital square and this pawn that leaves for white to have some space advantage on the board. And again on this position, Praggnanandhaa here wins with this position against the black. And for example, after a4 and a fourth move, we shall now examine the game between Rameshbabu Praggnanandhaa versus Slaven Pastar, in which the black here plays, for example, knight c6, but Praggnanandhaa here simply plays here with bishop to e2 and trying to have some kingside castling immediately so that the white here will able to be ready to attack now the black's position. And for example, Pastar here played d5, but Praggnanandhaa here simply plays the move capture on the d5, because for example after it takes d5, d4, c4, although it wins some space advantage on the board, but again this king still on the center and he has a lot of pieces that actually sleeping on his camp, while Praggnanandhaa here can castle now on the king side and can start now an attack against this king on the center. And after, for example, the black here plays bishop to f5 trying to have some development, but after rook to e1 it has now an indirect attack now on the king, because later on the white here can chop down the pawn with the check and winning some material on the board. So Pastar here cover now the e file with the move bishop to e7, but Praggnanandhaa here is actually on a little development and he can go with another development that puts some attack on this diagonal. And after, for example, the white here tries now to have some development, but Praggnanandhaa here actually has a nice move with the move bishop takes c4. Although this bishop is actually equal to 3 pawns, but after, for example, d takes to c4, even though the white here loses 2 pawns on the board, but with the move d5, it actually puts some pressure now to the black's position, because later on this pawn can move, while this bishop is actually pinned with the rook on the d1, and it has also a threat to capture now the knight. So after d5, it puts a lot of problem to the position of Pastar, but after knight b4, trying to have some counter attack against Praggnanandhaa with the knight on the b4, trying to have some fork on the c2, because after knight takes c2, the knight cannot be captured by the queen because it was actually defended by the bishop on f5. But Praggnanandhaa here is actually consistent to his idea by trying to sacrifice his bishop so that he can actually land his pawn now to d6, in which the idea is the bishop cannot retreat because it was actually pinned by the rook on the e1. Pastar here tries to counter against the white's attack with bishop takes c2, attacking the queen, but it actually doesn't help because there's simple queen to e2. escaping from the attack of the bishop. Later on, he can now actually grab now the bishop on the e2. So after the black here actually defend his position with knight to g8, trying to defend his bishop with his knight, so that for example if the white here takes the bishop with the rook, but there is knight takes to e7, so Praggnanandhaa here moves another piece that puts some attack to the black's position with knight to d5. Again, trying to reinforce some attack against this e7 with the knight and the rook on the board. So after knight to d3, again, Pastar here tries to counter. But again, there is a simple knight c7 on the board with a check and a fork. So after the king moves to a safe square, but there is simple d takes e7 check with a fork against this pawn. So Pastar here was actually obliged to capture that pawn. But after knight takes e8, knight d5 attacking the bishop with two attackers with only one defender, and again attacking this knight also on the a8. But there is just simple queen takes to c2 for Praggnanandhaa, because after knight takes e5, there is simple queen takes to c4, and after queen takes e8, rook a to d1 with two attackers with only one defender on this knight. So after knight to e2, giving a check, trying to reroute his knights against from the attack of these pieces of white, but there is simple king to f1 on this position, and after knight to d4, after 23 moves with knight to e5 threatening to mate in 1, Pastar here actually resigned because there's a lot of pressure here. And later on, the white here can actually win some huge material advantage. For example, if this knight retreats, then there is a grab on the knight on e2. And for example, if this queen will actually defend to e8, but there is a simple sacrifice on the a8. And for example, if the queen captured, but there is a mate on the f7 with the knight and queen. So after 23 moves, Pastar here actually resigned against Praggnanandhaa with his unbelievable fourth move of a4. So after e4, c5, knight f3, e6, even though his opponent here tries some moves, for example after knight c3, playing a6, but with the consistent a4, a secret weapon against the Sicilian defense for Praggnanandhaa, Praggnanandhaa here actually wins some games with this move with a4. For example, his position against queen c7 on the fourth move, and again knight c6. And even though another position, for example, with d6, after b5, knight d7, a4, again, Praggnanandhaa here actually win easily with this kind of thematic move for Praggnanandhaa with early queenside expansion on the board. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe.